What's going on, Lubbock, Texas? Welcome to episode 128, season 8 of Talking Throws Podcast, Texas Style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Jen.
And we are throws coaches with the track club, the Throwing Factory. You can go to that website, thethrowingfactory.com, and check out our bios. We are gearing up for our indoor season. So if you're needing online lessons, in-person lessons, feel free to reach out to us. If you're not in a location where we can get to you, we have other coaches, Coach Knight at Night Power and Performance out around the Abilene area, Coach Keeter north at the Throwing Factory in the greater Wichita Falls area, and then Coach Jarvis running east at the Throwing Factory in the east side of Dallas around the Rockwall, Mesquite, East Texas area. And now we have a new javelin coach, Kendall Udi. So if you're the multi-sport athlete looking for some javelin lessons, she is a great person to get them from. Or if you're learning, maybe want to do the turbo javelin as well, she can get your youngster up to speed with that turbo javelin. If you go to our website too, you're going to see links from Michelle Gregovich, sports psychologist. You'll see links for Fiber Sports Discus and another sponsor of ours, 4throws.com. We want to thank our sponsors for what they do. They help us out in every way. 4throws.com, quality implements priced right. Guys, anything you need in the throwing world, shoes, hammer cage, hammer glove, new wires, handle, javelin, training javelins, fin flyers, whatever you need, 4throws.com is the company to go to. Use that code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Also, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association, that website is ttfca.org. They are gearing up for their 2025 clinic in Waco. The Hall of Fame is about to be announced. Joe Brown's doing the discus. Michelle Carter is doing the talk for shot put this year. It's a 2-day event. So go to that website and register online. Fiber Sports Discus, one of our sponsors. It's a new way to get the distance. Fiber Sports Discus is the way to go. If you want to purchase a Fiber Sports Discus, that can be purchased at 4throws.com. Just use that code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. NTX Timing, let Carl Hornback and his crew run your meet. If you're looking to get results posted, heat sheets, and it's a big meet, NTX Timing is the meet that can keep it organized while you can go coach. You don't have to worry about all the details and stuff. So Carl's the man for that. He's doing a lot of cross country right now, but I'm sure we're going to cross paths with him indoor and then into the high school season as well. That website is ntxtiming.com. Big shout out to Big Frog. Thank you for supporting us over the years. Lifting DFW. If you're needing Olympic training, if you're wanting to cut weight and, kind of be a healthier person of you, reach out to liftingdfw.com. You'll find my contact information on there. Also, too, check out our YouTube channel, and there's a link from that on the throwingfactory.com website as well. And then also there's information about the podcast as well, where everything's updated, so you can see all our history of everybody had. Maybe we're going to listen to this episode and you missed it. Now it's like a couple seasons ago. You can go back on there and find what date it is, and then go to your platforms for your podcast and listen to that. So keep up the good work with all that. Appreciate what y'all are doing for us and supporting us. Today's guest is currently living back in his home country of Australia, working with the youth. He is a 2-time NCAA champion in the discus. His first one was at Texas Tech. His second one was at UCLA. In 2013, he broke the NCAA record in the discus all-time mark with a mark of 68.16. In 2012, he was an Olympian at the London Games. Please welcome to episode 128, Julian Wruck. Well, thank you for being on. It's an honor to have you to get your story out there. You're a legend, so we're excited to kind of hear your stories and thoughts on throwing. So, Julian, so update our listeners and everybody kind of what you're doing currently.
Yeah, so I'm not throwing anymore. I miss throwing. I love it, but I finished throwing quite a while ago. And now I'm just living back in Australia, same city I grew up in, Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah, just living here with my partner. We're looking to buy a house in the next year or so. I'm doing youth work. So I'm working with at-risk youth in residential care. So young, mostly teenagers, but some younger, but kind of in trouble. Maybe they don't have a stable parenting situation. And I found that really, really rewarding, actually, getting in there and trying to see how to positively influence young people to get them, to grow up into responsible adults and help society and whatnot. And I've been really enjoying that. I've been doing that for about 2 years now, which I like.
Oh wow. So
That's awesome.
so any of that work, like you like, dude, you're tall. Do you want to come throw?
Well, I mean, I try to get these kids outdoors and just get them moving or get them getting to the gym or something like that. Because, like I think a lot of young guys have a lot of energy and they need somewhere to channel that energy.
Yeah.
And but for me, throwing was the best thing that happened to me as a teenager. I was not that mentally healthy. I had a lot of energy. I didn't know what to do with it. And for some people, they get into the wrong crowd, the wrong group of friends or something, and they go down the wrong path. I just got obsessed with discus and I just channeled all of my energy into that. So I haven't recommended it to any of the kids. They get into discus, but I try to get them outdoors, get them into sports, get them into something. So maybe one day, yeah.
Awesome.
That's so good. And that is so needed these days with kids. They need someone to push them outside and to be active and realize that that's something they can do to get rid of. I'm a teacher, so I see that in kids who can't, sit still because they just sit all the time. I need someone to push them outside and be active. That's awesome.
Yeah. So is this a company you work for, or is this something kind of you are affiliated like in a nonprofit or something?
Yeah, this one's a company.
Okay.
There's for-profit companies, not for profit, but it's basically I mean, a friend of mine calls it like rent-a-dad. It's like these kids, they don't have a stable family situation, so they live in government housing essentially, and we go in for a period of time and you just be a parent for the day or something like that.
Oh wow.
I love that.
Wow. So I'm guessing when you were throwing her in the Olympics, you never thought that you would be going down this avenue.
No, no, no. I think life is very interesting. Like, I mean, you can have a plan as to what you want to do in life, and I definitely had a plan when I was throwing that I'd be throwing for a lot longer than I was. But I mean, you just have to adapt as life comes at you. And so I've had an enormous amount of amazing experiences that had nothing to do with throwing. I would never have guessed I would go down that path. So
Yeah, yeah. So how long's it been since you've been out of throwing? Like when was your last competitive meet?
oh, I'm gonna say, I mean, I had World Championships 2015 in China, Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
I had that. I think I came 12th. I got into the finals, but I came last in the finals. Wasn't throwing that well at the time. Then it was, I think, Australian Nationals the year after that. Didn't go so well. I was on a downward trajectory at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it something you just kind of decided like you were burnt out a little bit and decided to go a different path? Because
Well,
the reason
no.
I ask is we speak to athletes all the time in that transition of what I go into normal livelihood versus
Mm.
trying to pursue this dream that's inside me and my thoughts are consumed with it. And then all of a sudden, like I just stopped cold turkey.
Well, no, like I was still in love with throwing at the time. I
Yeah.
love like discus is just I'm all through. I love track and field. I love the whole sport. I love high
Yeah.
jump. I love sprint. I love everything. But I love discus still at the time. But I got a digestive illness. It was ulcerative colitis. It's a bit like Crohn's disease, if you've heard of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And it's I mean, it doesn't sound that bad on paper, but until you get it, it's debilitating. I got rashes all over my skin. I was like chronic fatigue, which sounds like you're just tired, but like I mean chronic fatigue. Like standing up out of a chair is like doing a heavy squat, And
Yeah.
I was just yeah, it just got worse and worse. It kicked in about my last year at UCLA. So my second last year at UCLA, junior year, that was my best year. That was through my personal best. Had all these great competitions. Second last year it started off really well. The off season was going really well, and then just at the beginning of season, I would notice I would just get a little bit lightheaded here and there, just a little bit lightheaded, a little bit irritable. I wasn't sleeping as well. My routine was a little bit different. and I just didn't feel quite. I couldn't put on strength like I wanted to. I was still strong, but it just didn't feel the same. And it just got worse and worse throughout the season. Towards the end of the season, I wasn't throwing as far. And like there were a couple of times I would fail on a set of squats that was a trivial weight, like just like this should be going up, and it's just not. And it would be like the day, I'd warm up, I'd hit like I remember one day I warmed up, I hit like it's 220, 230 for a single. I'm like, all right, cool, that's the heavy single done. And it felt really heavy. Then I went down to 180. So it took down 50, it was like 110 pounds lighter, and it was just as difficult. I almost failed it. And I'm like, this is 110 pounds lighter than I just hit 5 minutes ago. What the hell happened? My body was just breaking down. And I didn't diagnose it for another 3 or 4 years when I got back home. So it took, I just kept getting worse and worse. I was lightheaded. I was losing muscle mass, gaining fat. And I just thought, I just need to train harder. I just need to train harder, which is the worst thing you can do. And it was this autoimmune condition. And by the time I diagnosed it, my body was already a bit broken from overtraining and all that. And I just, once I got diagnosed, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is going to take 2 or 3 years to heal, essentially. Yeah. And then I can get back into discus. I still could, but I mean, my body's a bit beat up at this point. I've got osteoarthritis in both knees. I've got, sublux shoulders. I've got like all kinds of things going wrong in my body. I'm still healthy enough. I can still move around. Knowing how hard you have to train to be at the highest level, I just thought, okay, this is about it. And luckily, I'm actually very grateful that I went through that. I don't wish it upon anyone, but that illness led me to discover. I mean, I got into meditation just to calm my nervous system.
Oh, really?
And it reduced my stress hormones right down. Yeah, I just listened to a podcast one day and they were talking about meditation. I'm like, all right, I'll try that. And I calmed my nervous system right down. I went, oh, there's something to this. And then I put more and more time into that. And one of the causes of digestive illnesses, autoimmune conditions, is just stress. And I was so stressed out for so long. I just reduced my stress right down. My sleep improved. This condition, eventually, I had to change my diet as well. Very strict diet, cut out gluten, cut out dairy for a long time, like a few things. And the combination of decreased stress with a different diet, I eventually healed myself completely. Now my digestive system is as healthy as it's ever been. Awesome. It just took a few years, but I didn't know that early enough to change my career. I wish I had, because then I could have stuck to discus, but I'm very grateful because meditation has just rewired my brain. I'm so much more relaxed now. I'm so much more focused. I'm enjoying life a lot more, because I was pretty neurotic when I was a thrower. I was pretty mentally a bit, neurotic.
Thank you for saying that, because I was going to say something else.
I think a lot of throwers are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that compete at the high level you have, after we've interviewed them, and there is just something wired within the throwers to really focus on the details and everything it takes. So
are you meditating like every day? Because I know there's different apps where you can like only have 5 minutes, or I can do this for 30 minutes and stuff like that. What's kind of your regimen?
Yeah, every day, every single day. So I started out just going, 5-10 minutes a day initially, and then once I really noticed I remember the first time I noticed it was working. I was just walking around, and there was something happened that would usually give me a sort of startle response, and I just was a bit more calm, and I'm like, oh, that must be the meditation. And then I turned it up a little bit. I went to maybe 30 minutes a day, and then 40 minutes a day, and then an hour a day, and then I was just letting go of all this stress I'd accumulated over my whole life, and like parts of my body were just relaxing. Like it felt like, there's muscles in your gut or in your shoulders just tensed up, and it just relaxed, and it just kept happening. I'm like, this is incredible. And so then I decided once I finished discus, 2016, I think, was like somewhere in 2016, I took a break briefly. 2018, I sort of tried to make a comeback.
Okay.
I think I came second at the Australian. Oh no, sorry. The Commonwealth Games were that year, which is like not as big as the World Champs or Olympics, but it's an international comp. And I I came third at the Australian National Championships. I think I threw 60, 61, something like that. And for reasons that I have a lot against, some things against Athletics Australia. They chose first, second, and fourth to go to Commonwealth Games. And I was really, because the guy who came fourth behind me, he was like, they were investing in him because he was like, he's a year younger than me or 2 years younger than me. And he was like an up and comer. And I get why they did it, but I was just kind of a bit bitter about that. So I just like, all right, I quit. I'm done. I should have been chosen to go. And anyway, so, and then I decided to go on a meditation retreat. So I went on long, I basically just got some camping supplies, a bunch of canned food, found my friend and just said, hey, can I pay you like just a few $1,000s, just camp on your property for a couple of years? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I just disappeared out the back of his property in 17 months, just living alone, basically just meditating every day in the Australian outback. And it was, yeah, it was the most amazing experience. And I healed so much of my sort of crazy racing mind finally settled. And I understood why, you know, the great sort of saints and sages and priests and whatnot of history, they all have some period of time they go off by themselves and they live in seclusion. And I understood that now. I got like a lot of the sort of deeper spiritual meaning from it. So yeah, I'm very grateful that even though I got that illness, I'm very grateful that it led me down that path, because now I'm just a happier person in general.
Wow. I've always wanted to hear stories of people going out kind of in isolation. I don't know. I would be like, oh my God, I get it back.
That's a sign he needs to do it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to let go of, because like you don't realize, like, I'm addicted to 1,000 things. My phone, my morning breakfast, you're addicted to 1,000 things. And then when you go out and you have nothing, you just have trees and everything. You just sit and relax. You realize, like, oh my God, I need to let go of everything, my whole life, you know?
So do you have any crazy encounters with like an animal or anything, or just like sleeping at night and somebody's like walking around your camp or something?
Not so much people, but animals. Yeah, like snakes, deer. I didn't even know we had deer in Australia. Well, I knew we had them somewhere, but introduced species. But there were these loud deer calls at night, and I thought there were cows from the farm nearby. And I'm like, they're right next to my tent. And I was starting to get really worried. Like, those can't be cows. They don't sound right. And then one morning I woke up, and in the mist, because I was on almost like a mountain, in the mist, I saw these stag, like the horns, the antlers. And I'm just like, it's a deer. That's what these noises have been. And then it like galloped away. As soon as it heard me, it like ran away from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing experience.
That's awesome.
I do have to ask you one thing, because I want your perspective on this. This year, the world record was set in the discus, 74.35.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me kind of what you felt when you heard about the record being broke, who broke it, because I know that's an influential as well, and kind of what does that mean in the world of discus throwing?
Yeah. Mikolas Alekna, so before he broke the world record, he beat my NC2A record, D1 record, as a freshman, I think, in his first year. The moment he did that, or even before that, I'm like, oh, this is a phenomenal throw. And then he did that, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember where I was in my freshman year, and I just thought, if he's throwing, what did he throw, 68 or 69 meters in his freshman
69-12, I believe, something like that, yeah.
69-12, and I'm just thinking, I remember where I was in my freshman year. That is unbelievable. That's so far ahead of where I was. I'm just like, this guy's the next big thing. Like, he's incredible. And then I started watching some videos of him. Like, I'm not as connected from the throwing world as much. I used to, watch every single video I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
It was at throwvideo.com. Like, I used to be on there, like, going through all the archives, emailing him, can you send me this extra thing? And it's the more I watch of his technique is superb. It is just absolutely incredible. The linear drive across the ring with his left out of the bag is absolutely amazing. I think, like, physically, he's not that incredible. Like he's got a good body. He's fast. He's explosive. He's kind of strong, but not compared to Daniel Stahl or Christian Che. Like these guys physically, they have everything that you would want in a thrower better than him. He just moves so damn well. He's capturing more of his energy with a summation of forces through his block at the finish than any of those guys. Even if he's got a shorter radius, even if everything like that, like he can stop his left side, and all of the energy transfers into the discus better than anyone, maybe anyone I've seen. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. And so 74-35 is really far. I think he's got another 2 or 3 meters in him at least.
Really?
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if within the next 2 years he throws like 77 or 78. He need to get the conditions right and everything. But I watched that throw a bunch. It was a good throw, but it wasn't like perfect. Like he has room in the tank for sure.
Oh wow. We were in Paris and we watched the qualifying rounds and stuff, and you were so right. Just his stature compared to everybody else. And there's a couple guys like Sam Mathis for the US who's maybe 6'1", kind of on the thicker side, carries a little bit more muscle. But like if you put him next to Christian and Daniel Stahl, or even like Matt Denny, big statured guys, he doesn't look like, he's like, oh, he can throw that far. But I've never thought of it in that perspective of, that transferring energy into the arm, into the hand, into the disc, like you said. So
yeah, well, he also has that. There's a few throwers that, I mean, in the world of discus, I often see there's like a dichotomy. There are a few throwers that treat it almost like shot put, because I mean the spin is the same. You just have your arm out here.
mm-hmm.
They treat it like kind of like a shot put like event where it's mostly a power event. And there are a few guys, probably like 5 or 6 at an elite level, who treat it almost like a plyometric movement, like it's a jump and it's all about speed, and they don't care so much about the strength. And like Philip Milanov is another one. He got a really, really great linear drive, not very strong, nothing particularly. He's pretty tall, but nothing particularly amazing about him physically. But I think that treating it almost like a plyometric event, and actually reflecting on my own parts of my own career when I was quite thin and I wasn't focusing on strength, I think there's actually a lot to that. I think that I probably emphasize strength, and a lot of discus throwers emphasize strength and size a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's whatever he's doing, it's working.
Wow. And that's funny that you said that, because as you probably aware, in the US, we haven't had the best reputation of discus throwing. And, back in the earlier days, some of our guys were tall and lean, and there wasn't an emphasis on weight training. And it's almost like, I don't know if you have this perspective, but we've almost kind of weight roomed ourselves out of great discus throwers. And that might be a little bit because of football and some of that stuff. And we just put so much mass on, and we've come consumed with strength. And you're so right that we've lose that elasticity and the kind of that bounce, from that plyo movement. I haven't had that perspective. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's a few reasons why America hasn't performed quite as well. And yeah, weight room is one of them. I mean, one of them, for example, is a lot of the colder states, they have the indoor season, and you're essentially not throwing the disc, you're throwing it into a net. You don't get the feedback. Yeah. So like just take 2 or 3 months out of the year where you could be throwing a discus into a field and seeing that, it helps. And so people focus on the shot put because you get points in the indoor season, and they're not focusing on discus until the season. So it's easier to treat the discus as like just shot put, but with the thing out here. It's a little bit easier to just make that transfer. So you've got a lot of throwers that are doing multiple shot put, discus, hammer, or discus javelin or something like that. Whereas in Europe, they specialize young and they just focus on one thing. And shot put benefits directly from weight room numbers more than discus. Obviously, it's a heavier. It's just harder to move. You got to push the shot as well. It's maybe I'll anger some people by saying this. Probably not. It may be a little bit less technically finicky in that it's a little bit more forgiving. If you there are people that just brute force the shot in a way that you probably couldn't in the discus. And so like guys like Christian Cantwell in America, like just if you've seen him in the weight room, it's a feat. It's a he's a force of nature. Like it's just some people that should be Joe Kovacs. Look at Joe Kovacs' lifting numbers. His lifting numbers are like up there with the elite world strongest men numbers.
Yeah.
I don't understand what I'm seeing when you see that video of him squatting 320. What's it? 705 pounds.
10 times.
10 reps with no just knee sleeves, not even knee wraps. That just I don't understand that. I mean, so obviously shot put benefits so much from the strength. Discus can, but it's at the end of the day, it's 4.4 pounds. It's not that heavy. And so it's mostly about speed and it's mostly about precision, a little bit more than it's about raw power. There have been a bunch of very weak guys that have thrown the discus a long way. Not so many weak guys that have thrown the shot put a long way. You know?
That's true.
Very true.
That's true. That 16-pound ball, you got to have some mass to
So-
move that.
So this leads me to ask you too, because this might go 2 hours, but you're very well known for your unique discus technique, and so there's videos of YouTube where kind of you're like offset, and it's kind of that 2-turn type stuff, and you change some stuff. So talk about your perspective of how you viewed what you needed to do to throw far, but also too, where did that kind of tinkering come in of trying new stuff?
Yeah, so I had this season, my 2012 season. It could have been a really good season. It ended off a bit funny. It started off really well. I got glandular fever, mono. You guys call it mononucleosis or something.
Yeah.
And it was I just trailed off towards the end of the year and didn't go so well. But I started off really well, and I was light. I was I'm 6'5", and I got down to like, let's say 240-ish, which is not tiny, but like 240 is like not that big at all, really, for a 6'5" dude.
Yeah.
And I was just focusing on speed, and my throwing frequency had climbed up a little bit because I was at Texas Tech for 2 years. When I went from Australia, I was throwing 2-3 times a week. At Texas Tech, I threw 4 times a week, and I got better. And then I'm just like, what if I just turn this up a little bit? I read I forgot his Anatoly Bondarchuk, and he's talking about training frequency, and he says do the specific movement as frequently as you can. So I took that to heart, and I started doing. I was doing my first 6 months at UCLA. I was redshirt, and I was throwing a little bit more often, and I turned it up to like. I had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 sessions a week of throwing. So I would go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I would go morning and then evening. And then Wednesday, I would have 1 evening session. And then Saturdays, I would have a competition or maybe just a quick session. And they'd be short. I wouldn't throw for an hour and a half. I'd throw for warm up and then 20 minutes of throwing. I might do 10 max effort throws, like literally max effort distance. And I would do heavyweight discus, lightweight discus, competition weight discus, or sometimes an implement, sometimes like a little bit heavy thing for specific strength. In the gym, I wasn't grinding. I had, I think, 3 general strength workouts throughout the week, which are really just same weights, never went up, just like overhead press, bench press, squats, something where I'm not even getting close to failure, like just easy, just to keep the strength. Yeah. And then I would have some specific strength sessions. I would just really light, explosive, good mornings, broad jumps, hang snatch, stuff like that, and spinning, twisting stuff. And I noticed I was throwing way further than I thought I could at that body weight, at that level of strength. And I thought I was playing around with my technique. There's a lot to this. Sorry, tell me if I'm getting.
No, that's what I asked.
I noticed that if the disc is as far back as I could reach it, you've got a stretch here on your chest.
Yeah.
If out of the back of the circle, I actually brought my arm forward a bit, so there was no stretch on the chest. It's like I've got wiggle room there. I could actually get a little bit further away from my center of mass. And I treated it almost like the hammer throw, where I wasn't trying to sling the discus, like pulling it forward. I was trying to get the discus to pull out against my fingers a little bit.
Yes.
And then I had this thing out of the back of the circle. It was like the way I turned on my left leg. I could get this really, really powerful drive across the circle. And because I was so light, I was only 240, I could move really fast out of the back of the circle. So there's this one meet, I've got it on YouTube. It's the Stanford Invitational, I think.
Uh-huh.
So Nick Scarvellis was taking a red shirt year, the same year as me. He drove me up to Stanford. We did the Stanford Invitational, really good ring. I really liked the surface of the ring. And I think I threw 64.84 or so. Something like that. I think 64.80 or 64.84. And I had this foul that was like 66, 67. And it was like, it was a tailwind. Like I was throwing, I think I won the meet by like 10 meters or something like that. Like it was just, I'm like, this disc is going so far. And I'm just playing with these technical things. I'm like, there's something in this. I've got to play around with it a little bit more. And then glandular fever kind of ended it for me. But I just thought, okay, this is less about getting a big sling and driving linearly, which is a wonderful technique. It was just a new technique. It was purely rotational. It was like the hammer is very just rotational. There's not much linearity in hammer throw.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, what if I just spin further? The next year, I just said, what if I just add on? I saw Eric Cardi was from the Netherlands. He was playing around with an extra 90 degrees. I noticed there was, I was throwing my best throws out to the left of the sector. And I was fouling some big throws, extra big throws. And I'm like, what if I just, instead of starting facing, I'm throwing that way, I just start over here. So I've got a bit of extra rotation. And then I saw Eric Cardi's throw, and I'm like, why don't I just do what he's doing? I just add a full 90 degrees on. And I started throwing further and further and further. And the two-turn was an experiment in my last year at UCLA. I wish I had had the courage to go through with it. I was training the off season. It was very hit and miss, a lot of terrible throws. It's really hard to control, but I was trying that same sort of technique. I was also focusing too much on strength. I should have done more throwing, less weight room, because it's a brand new technique. You need to train it lots. And then the season comes around. I haven't really got it together yet. Every now and then I throw a bomb, it just goes ungodly far, and then I'll throw 5 fouls in a row, and I'm like, I can't risk going into a competition and just getting 3 fouls. And there's a lot of pressure on me at the time. I think the previous year, my junior year, I think, if I remember correctly, I was the only one at UCLA who had scored at nationals.
Yeah.
And so there was like, the team wasn't doing so well. And so I felt like, okay, there's a bit of pressure on me, because if I start fouling out of competitions, our team in general is not very strong. We've got some decent athletes, but it's, in terms of scoring points, it's going to look bad. And so I just thought, okay, I'll just go back to my old technique last year. But I had some bad habits from the two-turn, and it was not enough time in the season to correct it. So I just kind of went downhill, and then the digestive illness as well. But to answer your question, very long-winded answer. I've always thought the discus has the most room for improvement of any of the throws. I think shot put, people can improve on the shot put, hammer, javelin too. The javelin is pretty much, from my perspective, figured out. Like, there are rules against all the weird throw. Like, people used to throw it almost like a discus, the sling of the javelin years ago. But people have pretty much figured out. There are people who have almost perfected the javelin technique. The hammer technique, maybe there's a bit more room there, but it's like the tension on the wire on the top throwers towards the end of their throw is approaching something like 400 kilos of tension. Mm-hmm. That's like a world-class deadlift right there. Like, I don't know how strong you'd have to be to throw further than that, but if you want to throw 87 meters, 88 meters, I don't know if it's like, maybe someone can do it, but there's not a whole lot. There's maybe a tiny bit of wiggle room. Shot put, there's a bit to be gained. I mean, the fact that Joe Kovacs could throw that big foul that was like 4 feet over the world record. Now it's been extended by Ryan Krauser, obviously. There's probably, 2 or 3 feet in that. But discus, there's no restrictions on how you can throw the discus. It's not like shot put, you have to push. Javelin, you have to throw a certain way. Hammer throw, I think you might have to have 2 hands on it or something. I can't remember what the discus, you can kick it if you want. You can do whatever you want. You just get the discus to land in the sector, however you want. And then I'm like, okay, well, why do we all do this technique? Why do we all spin like that? There's got to be, like, we can just make up any technique if you like. And I started sitting down and thinking about all the techniques, and I thought, I'm never going to be like the really big throwers at the time for me, there were who was it? So 2008, 2009, 2010, when I was finishing high school, Gerd Cantor was like
Yeah.
the Robert Harting. And then there were a few guys like that, and they were pretty physically impressive, but there were some bigger, stronger guys coming in at the time. Daniel Stahl was a year younger than me. I think he was coming up. And I just recognized going to America and meeting some amazing, like physically, some incredible athletes. I was just thinking, I'm never going to outlift, out explosiveness, out arm length these guys. They're physically more impressive than I am. Maybe I can outthink them. And so I was already reaching my max in terms of training volume, intensity, frequency. My body was like, I was getting little injuries here and there. I thought, okay, I can't train any harder than this. It has to be technical. That's where all my gains are gonna come from. So I thought, all right, I'll just try something creative. And I was always looking for the next big thing. And there was a guy in Russia that was trying a two-turn. Then Eric Keddy was doing the 90 degrees. And I thought, okay, maybe the 90 degrees plus the two-turn, because that gives me a bit more room to do the second turn. I'm still convinced that if a more talented athlete than myself, more physically adept, started off with the two-turn and trained it for, 7 or 8 years and really drilled it down, and they were willing to foul out of competitions and not be consistent, but they're going for the world record maybe. I'm still convinced that discus throwers, a good discus thrower, physically impressive, who had the perfected two-tone, could throw well over 80 meters, like 10 meters beyond the world record right now. I think that's possible. It's going to be really difficult, but I think that it's possible in discus. I don't think any other throw has that much room for improvement.
Wow. So just a technical question on your thoughts. So out of that first turn, getting into the second turn, what was your thought process of getting out over your left? Because you're kind of in that drop step, and it's a longer path for the discus. How did you shift your weight and get around that? Because it's a longer path.
It is a longer path, yeah. I almost, it's hard to say, but I almost never got my weight over my left entirely.
Okay.
And because when you're sprinting and you're on the blocks, you've got your weight further forward than where your feet are. It's over your hands. You take your hands off the ground and you're almost falling.
Yeah.
And that triggers the stumble reflex. And then your legs shoot out in front of you to catch you and drive you forward. So you have to offset the weight to get you to drive forward. So if you add 90 degrees on, you wind up and you're facing the direction of the throw.
Yeah.
And as you turn a little bit, you get your weight a little bit back over your left foot, but it never shifts fully onto the left foot. You take your right foot off the ground and you're already falling towards the trajectory. And so it gives you like free linear momentum, free directional momentum in the direction of the throw. And it helps, the sprint cue, sprinting across the ring. I would naturally do that because I never fully got my weight back over my left. I shifted my weight a little bit, not all the way though.
Oh, wow. And so with that happening, and you talked earlier about instead of keeping the discus back, you would feel that movement and the disc would come out longer to your right side.
Yeah, so I did that in 2012. 2013, my best year, I gained a lot of weight intentionally, and I got a little bit stronger and actually started getting more and more of a stretch. I never fully kept it back as far as it would go to use my chest as an elastic, but I shifted to a more traditional position with my arm because I felt more confident. Like my 2012 when I threw that. I think my best that year was 65. No, sorry, I threw 65.74 in 2011. 2012, I threw 64.80 something, so around 65. I had a bunch of meets just under 65 meters, and I threw that with what did I have? My bench press, my upper body strength was very low. I think my bench press at the time was like 275, 260, 275. I just didn't have any mass here. Yeah. And then in 2013, I just was, dining halls at UCLA. You eat as much as you want to eat. all you can eat food. I just gained tons of weight. Me and my roommate Nick were just like, all right, we're just gonna eat. We just need to put on mass because we felt like we were technically as good as these other guys, but they're just stronger than us. So like, we're just gonna eat. So I got my bench press up to like three, would have been about 360, 370 that year. And it was like actually had a bit of mass here. So it made sense to use it as an elastic band. It made sense, and it worked, but I couldn't, I mean, I couldn't generate that speed with the heavier weight as well because I got up to 300 pounds body weight as well. So I couldn't spin like I did the previous year. So it was a bit more power, a bit less speed. And I think even though I had the best year of my life, I think I was probably, I was going down the wrong path in terms of strength and power instead of the year before I was onto something.
Okay, very fascinating.
That
If you don't mind, let's back up a little bit. I'm kind of curious. What was your introduction to throwing to start this path for you? Because it has to be very interesting. Did you just walk up, pick a disc, and it's like, I'm going to be the best discus thrower in the world one day?
No, nothing like that. My dad threw when he was in high school. He's just like he
Okay.
threw a little bit. He was all right, but he wasn't like amazing. And he just recommended I do it. So in Australia, we've got this club. It's like outside of school. It's like a club thing you can just sign your kids up to. It's called Little Athletics, and you just show up I think once a week, and they'll just give you like 4 random events. You do like 100 meters long jump, javelin, and 1500 meters. And that'll be your afternoon. That'll be your Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. And then you just keep going randomly. And so I just signed up to my parents signed me up to Little Athletics when I was like 8 or 9. And I saw you do shot put, discus, javelin, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400, everything, the whole track and field. And it was fun. I loved it. And I was good. I was better than the other kids, but there was like a group of 10 kids. Like I wasn't, it wasn't that impressive. And then I did a little bit in primary school. That's like grade 4, 5, 6, 7. I did it a little bit. I wasn't that great. High school, I signed up, and I was the best out of all the kids that tried out. But I wasn't like, I think grade 8 is our first year of high school. We got 5 years of high school, grade 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Grade 8, I drew 30 meters, just under 100 feet, with a 1 kilogram discus. And I came last at our school competition. There's like 9 schools in the area all compete. I came last. And then I got a little bit better year after year. And then I was 15 years old, and I was basketball. I love basketball. It was like my other love of sports. So I did basketball. I did a few other sports. Basketball, I broke my knee. I completely shattered my knee. It's still got this big scar.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely shattered my knee by jump. I was just jumping. Had a big growth spurt around 15. And I could dunk a basketball, and I got obsessed with like jumping and dunking, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was jumping, shattered my knee one day completely. Like kneecap was up on my quad, and it was just all over the place. They screwed my knee back together, and they said, "All right, you can't walk for 3 months. You can't play sport for 6 months. Like you put it out." And I thought, okay, no more basketball, no more rowing. I need to get serious. I had just started lifting weights, and I'd finished growing at 15 years old. I was like 6'5", so I was like pretty tall. And I asked my mom, like, hey, can I get some weights? Like, I really want to start lifting weights at home. And she's like, oh, well, we don't have it. I said, okay, if I combine my birthday present, my Christmas present, everything, just weights, you don't have to give me anything for the next year. I really want to lift some weights. And so I would crutch down on the crutches down to the garage where my mom parks her car. It was in an apartment building at the underground parking lot, just behind her car in a squeezed in space. I had a little squat rack with a slide-in bench. It's like a few $100. I still got the same rack. It's at home. It's
Oh, wow.
best investment of my life.
Yeah.
Crutch down. I just started doing bench press. Couldn't do a pull up. Just tried to do a pull up. Eventually, I one pull, and just built myself up. And that year, I did just discus and shot put discus. I was actually better at shot put, but just shot put and discus. Had a big growth spurt, and I threw. That was the first year I was 15 turning 16. So I was 16 years old at the time of all the competitions. and I won our school's nationals competition. So it was the best for my age in Australia. Same with shot put. I almost won it with a standing throw, but it was like I had improved so much, and then I thought, okay, I'm actually good at this. I could actually do something. And then my last year in high school, I threw about 200 feet with the 175, and I went to a bigger competition. I did pretty well, and then I got obsessed. My last year of high school, I just got obsessed with it. All I did was discus and weights.
Yeah.
So in this time, who was coaching you? Did you have a coach when you were 8 that moved up with you?
That kind of taught you how to hold the disc or the move?
Or did you just figure it out?
My dad taught me the real basics.
I gotcha.
Keep your elbow up, push the shot against your chin, chest up in the discus. But he didn't really know anything. He just, he knew the real basics. I got a coach very briefly before I busted my knee, and he was not good. I won't name him because I feel bad, but he recommended I do plyometrics, and I had tendonitis in my knees, and I was complaining my knees were always hurting. He's like, I just do some more jumping. It'll help your knees. It's the worst advice. And I'm like, it's really hurting. I would struggle to jog the lap to do a warm up lap around the track. Oh, it's fine, mate. You're just a bit of tendonitis. Just push through it. It'll be okay. And then it just shattered my knee. It was just
oh wow.
I have a lot against that guy. He's a lie. He lies to kids a lot. But anyway, enough of him. Then I had another coach, Panias. He was a nice guy. Knew the base. Knew some decent discus. Wasn't amazing. He wasn't a high level coach, but he was good for kids. I had him for maybe 5 or 6 months. I felt like I wasn't really improving, and then I just thought, I'll just do this myself. I'll just coach myself. And then from then on, probably my last year of high school, just after high school, I just started coaching myself. Filmed my own throws. Got a little camera, filmed my own throws. Threw. Went home, watched videos of Agilius Alekna, Gerd Cantor. Okay, I don't look like them yet. Okay, here's what I'm looking like. That's their throw. Competing. That's basically what I did. And even though I had coaches at Texas Tech and UCLA, I basically coached myself the whole time. All of my primary decisions were made by myself technically. All of my weight room programs were written by me, except Texas Tech, actually, they wrote some weight room programs for me. But generally speaking, I try to do my own thing. So I really liked that model of coaching myself. I wish I had a mentor, somebody wiser than me, because I was young and idealistic. I wish I had somebody a bit wiser to oversee my program and everything. But I liked being in control,
Okay. So just one thing, because when you were 15, 16, you threw 58-40 and won your Australian Nationals, and then the Commonwealth Youth record of 60 meters. Naturally gifted, put the discus in your hand, and it just kind of felt natural. Would you excuse me, would you agree with that? Because you don't see kids that young going that far, especially, with the 175. Because, going back to that previous conversation of we're behind in the U.S., and I feel we're behind in the U.S. too, because we're 1.6 in our high school system, and we don't ever touch that 1.7. And then when we try to go to the 2K in college, we get our butt kicked just because, Europe's and the foreign countries have been specializing in it. So
yeah, true. So I wasn't physically, I'm probably on par with a D1 discus athlete. I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
I got a 6'8" arm span, pretty tall. There are taller people out there, but there are shorter people out there as well.
Yeah.
I remember going to the Olympics 2012, and I was I remember thinking I'm about average. I'm maybe just under average, so I'm not a freak of nature, but I'm tall enough. Fast, I've never been that fast. I can sort of jump okay, but I've got really long legs, and I've never been very naturally strong. I have to grind in the gym to get strength. I'm not some people just look at a weight room and they just get stronger.
Yeah.
What I had was, I was talented in one sense. I was talented in that I had a really great feel during the throw. I had a really good feel, a kinesthetic awareness. Okay, I can feel my foot. I can feel my left arm. I can feel where the discus is pulling. Okay, that one didn't go very far, and I know exactly why. It's because I didn't get that feeling of tension. I can't put it into words, but I've just got this little whip thing going at the end. And had a really good feel for it before I could put into words what I'm doing. I was developing this sense of my body, whereas I think some throwers very unluckily they get a coach when they're younger, and it's good if you get a good coach, but even if you get a good coach, your coach tells you, okay, hit this position, and the athlete is just trying to copy what their coach says. And even if the positions are really good, they don't develop the feel because they're not listening to their bodies, they're listening to the coach. And I spent just hours and hours just throwing by myself. I had no one around. So I was just literally like, okay, I felt this and the discus did that. Okay, now I felt this sling. Oh, wow, that went 2 meters further. Okay, I'm going to keep doing that. And you develop something that's beyond language. You can't put into words, but you get this kind of coordination going. And I just developed that at a pretty young age, I think.
Wow. Because man, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
But I want to ask, because we talk with kids and we coach kids too, they don't understand what they feel. So when they turn it into a negative thought, and it kind of creates more problematic for them instead of just trusting themselves. And that might have to do with a little bit of insecurity, self-doubt. What would be your suggestion for that when you're out there throwing by yourself and listen to your body, but not create negative thoughts because of you think you feel something bad? You know what I'm saying? Am I saying that wrong?
No.
No, I understand exactly what you mean. It's like, I think that's maybe the role of a coach with younger kids. It depends what age, but younger kids, I mean, Dave Woolman taught me this more than anything. He coached probably 5 or 6 elite discus throwers, some hammer throwers, like, he coached Alekna briefly, he coached Hannes Hopley, Yanis Roberts, like all these great throwers. He said the role of a coach primarily is to build confidence in your thrower. He didn't say to build technique, to build good habits. He said, yes, that stuff too, but you need to make your throwers feel good about themselves. So building up a young kid and just saying like, no, like you're fine, like walk into the ring with your chest held high, you're throwing, like put things into perspective for them, like try to throw as far as you can, try to win the competition. But at the end of the day, it's just a sport, like it's not that you don't let it crush you if you lose and if you don't throw what you want to, and just enjoy yourself, have fun, recognize that you're capable of everything that the other people around you are capable of, just the sort of intrinsic emotional things. That's the role of a coach as well. And then if they have a bit of a breakthrough, just like boost them up, build them up, just be like, hey, that was really good. Like, what did you feel there? Okay, and ask for some feedback. Maybe like, I'm not the best coach. I've tried coaching. I can coach okay, but I overthink things and I know how to do it myself, but I'm like, I struggle to say the same. Do you have the same problem?
Yeah.
We're going to do 3 turns.
Yeah, exactly. I need to say this much, but instead I say this much. But I think this much, and I'm like, all right, I need to tell them all this. But really, all I need to do is just give them one little thing, and I struggle to hold back from that. So maybe if I get a young thrower who's like me, I can tell them everything. But people are wired differently too. There are throwers I know who have gotten to a high level, the highest level, Olympic Games, who they're not particularly bright. They're not particularly, anything. They have a good coach. They feel good about themselves. They're happy, healthy people. They're athletic. They just say, okay, what do I do? Oh, keep my arm up. Okay. And they just keep their arm up and they just throw. They just literally do it. And their coach is like playing a video game with a good athlete body. And the athlete just does what the coach says. And it's like it's a great relationship. And that's great. That's great for those athletes. They shouldn't change anything. For those people, it works. For other people, it's all happening inside. For me, it was all intrinsic. It was like the only reason why I succeeded or failed was in here. I had no one to blame when I threw badly. I had no one to thank when I threw well. I didn't trust other people's inputs. I had just trust issues with coach. I had people give me bad advice when I was younger. And so I just I need to generate the ideas that make me throw far. And it was kind of dumb. I've developed maturity with age, as we all do. Maturity is very hard to earn, but I've come to terms with the fact I really should have listened to more people. There were people giving me good advice as well as bad advice, but coaching is a very difficult thing to be a good coach. And if you look at the best coaches, yes, they know good technique, but they also know how to talk to a young person and make them feel okay about themselves. They know when to say something, and they also know when not to say anything. Even if there's something that would improve the throw, maybe that throw is not ready to hear it yet. Maybe right now all they need to do is maybe they need to take a day off. Maybe they show up with the wrong attitude. It's like, hey, how you feeling? Okay, you're not really into it. Let's just have some fun. So it's something I've never really mastered, coaching, but I know it has more to do with the person and not just the technique, not just the physical training itself, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, I think there's a fine line between the thrower becoming codependent on the coach, and then not to say that you're the extreme, but being too independent a little bit and trying to be too, individualized in your process of what you're doing in that happy medium and stuff. And that's, I don't know if you follow Val Allman much and see what she's done in the US, and Zeb's been her coach for a long time. And I give Zeb credit probably more than other people do, is he's taken her from how she looked at Stanford and really changed her entire technique and evolved with her, and kind of molded her. And that's been a long process where they're a dynamic duo now. But you got to give him a little bit credit of evolving that and kind of playing the both of mastermind, but also letting her feel the throw as well.
100%. She is amazing. I love watching her throw. Like, it's beautiful technique and everything. And yeah, I agree. Like, she does look a bit different. I haven't followed the story with Zeb and everything, but I can see he's had a big influence. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, people develop different relationships with their coach. Some people, it's like their bestie, it's like their best friend, and they're just like this. They go and do everything together. Other people, it's like I show up to training and my coach is there, and they give me a recommendation. I don't have to listen to it. I kind of do. It depends. It depends.
Yeah.
You can have even like Art Venegas used to have like he was, from all the stories I hear, he was quite a strict coach. He said, "You do what I tell you, when I tell you, to a T." And like when everyone talks about the best throws coaches ever, people always mention Anatoly Bondarchuk. Art Venegas, from what he's produced, he's one of the best throws coaches ever. Throws total. Like he never coached many good javelin throws or hammer throws, but shot discus. I mean, shot in particular, in my opinion, he's the best shot coach ever. Discus, he's just, John Godina threw pretty far. A few of his throws threw pretty far. He knows his stuff, particularly physical training and peaking for the events.
Yeah.
He was incredible, and he was just, you do what I tell you. Like, you don't need to think. I'll think for you, basically. Yeah. I might be exaggerating. He never coached me, so I don't know for sure. But that's the stories I hear from other people. So.
Well, that leads us, because we're going to get into, because I want to hear what you say about him.
So how did someone from Australia get to Lubbock, Texas?
And Coach Felkins.
And go to Texas Tech from Brisbane, Australia.
Welcome back, track people. This is Brandon, owner of fourthrows.com. We're a fast and growing track and field company that specializes in the throws. With our speed shipping, implement warranties, and rock bottom prices on javelins, discuses, shot puts, and hammers, call us up today to talk directly to one of the owners at fourthrows.com.
How did you get there?
And what was your first impression of Coach Felkins?
Oh my God. Okay, so I didn't even know you could get scholarships to America. I went to at the end of high school, they have like a careers day where people come out from like the military and this area and IT, and they try and sell you like, have you ever considered getting into IT? Have you ever considered? And this one guy was like, have you ever considered getting a scholarship? He was a scholarship guy. He got a scholarship to I can't remember which university, for tennis back when he was young. And he said, like, you're into athletics? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, how good are you? And I said, how good? He's like, you could actually get a scholarship. And I'm like, okay, interesting. And so I applied to a bunch of universities, went through, like, he basically, his thing is like, he teaches you the whole onboarding process, what's it called, the clearinghouse and all that. You have to like sign a bunch of things. And so I did all of that, and I applied to a bunch of universities, and I received one Division I full scholarship, and that was Texas Tech. Nothing else.
Really?
Because the 175 wasn't, I think it wasn't very well known. I'd thrown this one big throw, the rest of my throws were with the 1.5, which is lighter than the American discus. And so I think they saw my 60.88, so it was 199 feet. I think they saw that as a 1.6 throw in their mind, which is good. 199 feet for high schooler, but it's not like there are people throwing 205, 210.
Yeah.
So I got some interest from Clemson, I think, Clemson University, and University of, what is it? Texas El Paso showed interest, but they wanted to visit. And UCLA showed interest, but they had Art Venegas, but he was finishing. It was finishing that year, I think. So he wanted to show interest, and then they kind of retracted the interest. So I went on a trip to Lubbock because they said, Division I, full scholarship, no questions asked. Just we need a thrower. We need a discus thrower right now. They had a scholarship waiting there. They saw that it was a 1.75, and I'm like, well, okay, I don't know anything about Lubbock, but I went on a visit, and I was like, to a young Australian who had never seen the facilities of an American college, it just blew my mind. Big meals, big burgers, big steaks, big weight rooms. Yeah. Everyone was just like super positive. I'm like, what? There's just a full-time weight room coach. There's just a full-time physiotherapy or the athletic trainers. There's just a full room for that all the time. I just mind by my, all right, I'm going. I'm doing it. Yeah. So they wanted me in January. We do our high school year is January to December. It's just like a calendar year. You guys do like August to June, kind of. So they wanted me to start in the season in January, just go there and start competing. But I decided, we finished high school at the end of 2008. I decided to have the 6-7 months off at home, and I just trained. It got a little bit better, and I went there as like a 50. I think I threw 54 meters. So what's that? 180. Not as good with feet anymore. Something like 180-ish with a 2 kilogram before I went over to Texas Tech. And then met Cliff. He's a legend, man. Like he's taller than what he seems because he's got this kind of like slight such because he's but if he stands upright, he's huge. He's like this big imposing figure. He's a legend. He won the NCAA. I think the story is he was at a D3 university, I think. And he won. And then the old rules were if you win, you get to compete against the D1 guys. He went and won the D1 competition, and they changed the rules because of him. At least that's the story I heard.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. Cliff is, I got to hand it to him. Like, I think he's a bit bitter that I transferred to UCLA, which I understand. Yeah. But he has a method of coaching which works really well for some people, really well. He pushes people very hard. But if you make it through his coaching, I've seen some people quit because they just drilled to a couple of throwers that were there while I was there. One dude just walked out mid-session. He's like, that's it, I'm done. I quit. Like this, Cliff was just like, you're not getting it right, man. You just got to grab up the back. Like, he's just drilling him really hard. He just walked out. He's like, I can't do this. So it puts a lot of pressure on people mentally. Yeah. Puts a lot of people on pressure on people physically. I saw some people that were probably pushed a little too hard physically, got a lot of injuries. But if you make it through his training, you come out the other side, a damn good thrower. So he had, while I was there weren't many throwers. There was me, there was Ifeatu Okafor. Yeah. She came, I think she threw like 58 feet or something. I think she came like 4th or 5th at nationals, and she's like 5'5". She's tiny. Like, it's amazing. If you saw her throw, I don't know how a person that small can throw that far. We had Cole Weldon. Yeah, Cole Weldon ended up throwing pretty well. He joined, like, he had 1 year in my last year at Texas Tech. They had a couple of decent throwers, but the throws team was tiny compared to the rest of the team.
Did you ever cross paths with Jason Young while you were at Tech?
Yeah. I should talk a whole section about him. He had a huge influence on me. So he was like, he's a very wise person in life. Yes. He's had a really interesting life. He's like the word, autodidact. He's taught himself everything in life. He's read amazing books. Sorry?
I said throwing out of a shot put ring. He would throw the discus out of
Yeah.
a shot put ring.
Yeah, and he taught me that too. He put a lot of the ideas in my head that just not so much specific ideas themselves that improve my throwing, but just in terms of opening my mind. He just opened my mind up to thinking about things from a more creative perspective. He kept saying, like, don't think about this position as the correct position, because that means there is one correct position and all other positions are incorrect. He said that's a good position for some people. There's 1,000 other positions that are good too. Sometimes you get a unique thrower that looks really weird in the ring. Someone like young Jacko Gill looked really strange, and people are saying, like, oh, he's throwing so far. Imagine if he threw the correct inning. Well, no, maybe the reason he's throwing far is because it's different. And he just got me thinking about things in a completely different way. And I used to just finish class, go to the weight room, and just hang out with him, just talk. And he would just, I just became a wiser person hanging out with him. He had a huge influence on me. Not, again, we talked about discus, we talked about everything. About, he'd just have these gems. Like someone was talking about distance runners and how the best genetics of distance runners is like the African genetics, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia. And he's like, I don't know about that. And the conversation ended between him and that guy. And then afterwards, he said, here's what I think about the situation. There are plenty of people with great genetics for distance running, but you've got, like, a young high school kid or a college kid in America, even whether they from a middle class income family, even a low income family, life in America is way better than if you're poor in Uganda or you're poor in Kenya. That's a completely different level of poverty. It's a completely different level of not being well off. So they're training hard. Probably got their iPod speakers, the iPod headphones in, and they're jogging early morning, thinking, I'm working hard while everyone else is asleep, and I'm training hard and everything like that. They can run as hard as they want and train as fast as well as they like. They're never going to match the level of motivation of a young Kenyan man who knows that if I place at the Kenyan national championships in the 10K or in the marathon, I get to go to the Olympics. And if I go to the Olympics and I'm the third, even if I come third in Kenya, I could still medal. I might, like, third in Kenya might be third on the podium. Sometimes they're 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
So, and if I do that, I'll feed my family for the rest of my life. And you cannot match that motivation. And that is they're literally running for their lives. That's a phrase Jason used. He's literally running for his life. You try to be more determined to win a competition than that. You will never match that. So sure, maybe they've got some long femur or some higher red blood cell count or anything like that. That's not the reason why they're podiuming like anyone else. It's because that area of the world has a completely different motivational structure from anything else. So you'd have these gems, and I'm like, okay, this guy has just been sitting around thinking about the world, and he has a totally fresh perspective, and he upgraded my brain in 1,000 different ways. So I owe him a lot, I think, in life.
Have you ever read his book, Discus Dynamics? Have you ever seen his book?
No, I didn't. I mean, I never. I believe he came out with that book when I was kind of finishing up, and I was kind of like not as. It was. I wasn't finishing up. I was still throwing actually at the time. I was really keen on it, but I felt like I'd heard almost everything he had to say. I mean, I was just picking his brain. Yeah, to read face to face. I mean, I owe him more for what he did to my general life than he did to just my discus throwing. He improved my discus throwing.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, like, I mean, the guy's amazing. The guy's a legend, and he's nice, and he will give you his time. There was just some, I came out to America when I was 17. Some 17-year-old Australian kid just comes up to you and asks you annoying questions. He would give me hours of his time for free. Like, he'd just sit there with me and just talk and talk and talk and share his wisdom. He is, like, I can't say enough great things about him. Absolutely incredible guy. I haven't talked to him in ages. I should probably video chat with him.
So after those couple years at Tech, you're more familiar with the U.S., so you decide to transfer to UCLA. Kind of talk to us about, what was going through your thoughts of maybe looking to go to UCLA and why, and then what happened at UCLA.
I had a couple of sort of bad experiences at Texas Tech, and I was just lonely. So all I used to do was just train. I couldn't sleep at night, so I used to just go to the throws field at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., just throw for an hour, go back and just just all I was doing was discus throwing. And anyway, so I would go to class, I would come home, I'd finally start to rest. Then I had a different roommate scenario. I had a really white another person in college. You meet some crazy people in college. You met a poker player, online poker player. He was to this day the smartest person I've ever like actually interacted with in person. He was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. He would give me he opened my mind up as well. Him and Jason together were a big influence on me. But then I ended up switching to another housemate, and we had like it was just a messy old house, and I'd have to walk like maybe like 2-3 miles to get to class, and then I'd have to walk another 3 miles. So I was walking like 10, 15 miles a day. And I was just like, I never had a stable, supportive group around me of people. I mean, the throws group was so small. And sometimes it was just me and Iffy, just two people.
Yeah.
Occasionally, there was Kelly Kloss came in towards the end. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, Kelly Kloss.
Mm-hmm.
She was maybe the most talented athlete I've ever met in any sport. She's unbelievable, but she just didn't really want to throw. And Cliff's style of drilling hard throws, it just wasn't her style of throwing. She needed a more gentle approach, I think. But anyway, there was 2 or 3 of us most of the time competing, and so you didn't get the support of like a throws crew. You just had 1 or 2 people, and sometimes it was just me, Ippy, and Cliff in a car driving 6 hours to Denton to do an off-season meet or something like that. It was just not like I felt like my mental health was suffering big time.
Yeah.
And so then I asked for a transfer. It was a weird transfer process. They didn't want to release me. We ended up arguing a bunch. Eventually, I won't go through that whole thing because I don't want to badmouth anyone. But I got my release to UCLA, and then it took 6 months off at home, 7 months off at home between the 2 years. That 7-month period, I just lived with my parents in their apartment, and I just trained. Literally, all I did was just train discus. And in that 7 months, I went from, I think my PB at the time was 61 meters, but that was a big headwind. I would throw about 58 meters, 57, 58 consistently. By the end of that 7-month period, I was throwing like 60 meters every single meet. Like I just never went back below 60 meters. I think from that point on, I just threw for the next 3 years. I didn't have a single meet under 60 meters. I just like made this huge upgrade. All I was doing was throwing and lifting for throwing and thinking about my technique. I changed my technique completely. That's when I started pulling the discus forward a little bit. And then, in that period of time before I went to UCLA, I threw 65, 74. And that was like so I improved like 4.5 meters just like that in 7 months. And it was just literally all I was doing was just like, mom's like, all right, you tell me what you need to eat. And I'm like, all right, I need beef 3 times a day. I need rice. I need this, that. So it's just like eating, throwing, eating, lifting, sleep, eat, throw, eat, lift, sleep. It just, and when that's all you've got, you don't have any responsibilities. You don't have to go to class. You don't have to see anyone. You can eat whatever you want. Like, cause it's like my mom controls the shopping list for the week. It's the perfect environment for throwing. And then I went to UCLA with a lot of sort of momentum behind me.
Yeah. Who's the throws coach at UCLA when you went out there?
Mike Maynard. I think a lot of him too. I think he's a great guy and a really, really good throws coach.
You go from Tech and love it to now Los Angeles.
No difference.
UCLA, but now you're going to UCLA with the history of Art Venegas. You know, you're kind of following John Godina and all the great throwers they had. You know, and some of that legacy, Susie Powell and some of that type stuff. You had to be excited to the environment and the history that you were going into.
Yeah. Well, I knew Art Venegas really well because I knew John Godina really well. I was watching his throws videos from a young age. I knew Art Venegas. Long story short, he coached a bunch of amazing throwers.
Yes.
And I didn't know much about Mike, but I met this one guy, Simon Wardo. He's an Australian hammer thrower.
Okay.
He was at Boise State with Mike Maynard. I met him while I was between Texas Tech and UCLA. I met him out here in Australia. I had a session with him. He threw hammer throw, I threw discus. And he said, you should go and have Mike as your coach. And I'm like, why is that? He's like, trust me, Mike is a damn good coach. I was throwing like over 60 meters, like in training. I had a really good session. I threw like 3 throws of like 62 meters, no wind or anything. He's like, if you're throwing like this, coaching yourself, you go and have Mike coach you, and you will throw a damn long way. And I'm like, all right, cool. I trust his opinion. Simon was a really stand-up guy. He was a really honest guy. So, and then I met Mike, and he told me all about his history. And he had coached Anthony Washington, and he had coached like a handful of like really high level guys as well. Chima, Chima Ugwu, Ode Olakuoju, a couple of Nigerian guys, I think. There was a guy, yeah, he coached a handful of very high level throwers, and he really knew his throws. And I learned that while I was at UCLA. It's a very different approach than Cliff, very, very different approach than Cliff. Very dynamic in the technique that he coaches and the way he coaches is wasn't as traditional. It was more like the discus in particular. He liked a really sort of bouncy, dynamic throw, which is like you can see it in Anthony Washington. That's his.
Yeah. You just flourished in that environment. You broke the NCAA record in the discus.
Yeah.
In 2013, you probably had your best year of throwing. Agreed?
Yeah. 2013, best season, hands down. Yeah, it was I think I was really consistent that year. So I threw like something like 12 meets or 13 meets that year. And I think my season average was like 65, 84 or something like that. Like I was averaging what would have been the previous year, more than my personal best.
Yeah.
So I was just throwing so well. And it was a combination of gaining all the weight and getting some power and also recovering from glandular fever. And just had this really good roommate situation. I was rooming there was Nick Scarvellis in my room. The other room was there was a suite, and it was like Ryan and Xander, and we would just hang out, watch movies, go to the dining hall, eat, train, and it was the thing I was missing from Texas Tech. I was alone by myself, and I had all these weird roommates and stuff, and at UCLA, it was just like, all right, we're the throws group. We're the throws crew. We throw together. We lift together. We go eat together. We do everything together. And you support each other. When you throw a good throw, everyone's like, dude, that was awesome. Like, dude, you got a PB and squat yesterday. I didn't see it. Oh, damn. But really good. And it was you just feel like this emotional web around you helping you. And I needed that. And I didn't realize I needed that because I was coaching myself and I was so like solo about everything. I can do well individually. I improved when I was just training by myself at home.
Yeah.
But the supportive environment means that when you have a bad day, you can recover from that a little bit better. When you have a bad meet, they can lift you back up, and that was something I was missing and something I recommend for most throwers, I think.
Yeah. And that's true because this is such an individualized thing, and you have shot put, discus, and that's in kind of individual sports as well. And you can kind of beat yourself up, and going back to that feeling that feeling can create negative energy. But if you do have that squad that's very supportive, that can maybe pull you out of it and kind of learn from others as well. I can definitely see you benefiting from that.
100%. And here's a gem of wisdom from Jason again, Jason Young. He said, there's an energy to trying to prove people wrong when people think, you can't throw that far, you're not very good, like, proving the haters wrong. There is an energy you can get from that. But he said, what's an even stronger energy is trying to prove people right when people believe in you and support you. Said that energy, trying to prove people right and build you, trying to do what everybody knows that you are capable of is a far more powerful motivating factor than trying to prove the haters wrong. And I think he's right. I think he's right about that. And it definitely showed at UCLA.
Skipped over 2012. 2012, you won your first NCAA championship. Is that right?
2011, I won my first NCAA championship. 2012 was a redshirt year. Texas Tech year one, I came third. Second year at Texas Tech, I won the NCAA champs. Then I had my redshirt year. And in my redshirt year, I had the first half of the year was back at home. And that was when I was just training by myself. The second half of the year, I was at UCLA, but I was redshirting. So I was still competing, just unattached. And I was training up for the Olympics at UCLA, basically. And then 2013 season was my first proper season. And 2012-13 was my first proper season competing for UCLA.
But in 2012, you did go to the Olympics, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
what was that experience like, representing your country and you know, because you made finals?
Where was the Olympics in 2012?
I think it was
Where was it at?
China.
London. London 2012.
London, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was good. I didn't throw that well. I threw 60.08, and that was primarily it was a combination of nerves. Like, it's different throwing. I always threw a bit further in competition than in training because I get that the adrenaline would help. But that's when you have like 100 people watching you, maybe 500 people watching you. 60,000, 70,000 is a total, plus television is a totally different animal. So I got in the ring and just, okay, I suppose I'm going to throw the discus now. Like, I just kind of choked a bit. It was nerves plus the glandular fever kicking in at the end of the season. I didn't have it in me. It was a great experience, an amazing experience. Like, I mean, Olympics, it only comes every 4 years. So if you ever get to go to the Olympics, you never know. Even if you're an amazing athlete, it might be your last time. For me, it was my last time because, like, it's every 4 years. You could get injured on the next one. You never know. You'll get out of it. But if it's World Championships, every 2 years. They're frequent enough. But yeah, incredible experience. Even if I didn't throw very well, so be it. I got to meet a bunch of amazing people. I got to have the athlete village experience. I got to go to a different country. And there is a sense of pride calling yourself an Olympian. I get to say that for the rest of my life. It feels amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to ask this because Gerd Cantor, who you mentioned earlier, is kind of someone you watched as a youth, got bronze, and Robert Harding got gold. That had to kind of be pretty cool to maybe watch. I don't want to say your idol, but somebody you looked up to. You know, were you in the same qualifying rounds as one of them?
Yeah, I competed with Gerd 1 week. I think it was 1 week, or maybe it was 2 weeks before the Olympic Games in England, like nearby London, because they were all having like a warm-up meet. Yeah. And I got to meet Gerd and Mart Israel, and I think Gerd threw 67 and who won it, and it was pretty cool seeing him. And then I can't remember if I was in the same qualifying round. I think maybe as Gerd, probably not Robert, but it was pretty amazing seeing them in person. It's a different thing seeing them on a video and then seeing them in person. Like, you can see these big people moving very fast, and you get to see more about the technique. You get to see little things you can't see on video. And it was pretty amazing, but I was probably too nervous to take a lot of it in, to be honest. It's so nerve-wracking because I was only like 20. I think I might have turned 21 at the time, and I was just still young, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the results right now, dude. That was some legend discus throwers you were throwing against in there. Yeah. So pretty impressive. And then in 2013, your peak year, you made the World Championships as well. And you made the finals there, right?
Yeah, made the finals. I think I came 11th out of 12. I just kind of choked a bit as well. It was a bit of nerves issues. It was a bit of when I went back home, I lost some weight. I went down from like 304, 305 pounds, all you can eat dining hall. I went back home and I wasn't walking as much. I needed to just kind of move my body a little bit more. I decided on a sort of dumb training program. I was doing way lower reps, thinking I could just hold this kind of peaking program. I should have gone back to a bit more volume. There was that mixed with nerves, and it just didn't come together. Like, I think I threw 62, 40-ish, 62.50, something like that. I can't remember, but it wasn't like the season I was averaging 65.84. If I had thrown my season average, I think I might have got like a bronze or something, or like just fourth place. I would have gotten right up at the top somewhere. But I was never good at competing at the highest level. My best, like, training, I would throw whatever distance. Let's say I was throwing 64 at the time. If I had a local meet, I might throw like 65. If I had a little bit bigger, maybe like not 20 people watching, but like 100, 200 people watching, a little bit higher stakes, I'd throw even further, maybe 66, a little bit more adrenaline. And then if the crowd got too big, there was so much adrenaline. Maybe I'm moving fast, but I lose my sense of coordination. I lose my elasticity. So there was like a sweet spot at like conference championships, that kind of level, not like NCAA championships. It's a bit too big. Conference championships would usually be or like just the level below that, I would usually throw my furthest throws. That's right, because you got adrenaline. You just got like your heart rate's going and everything like that. So adrenaline, it increases your strength. People can lift heavier weights. They can jump higher, run faster. It increases cardiovascular output, but it moves your body back to primal movements. And discus, natural movements. Discus is not a natural movement. Like running is a natural movement. Everybody runs instinctively. You don't spin with an arm out straight naturally. So it's something you learn. So it gets a little bit less finessed, I think. Some people manage to lift. Some people they throw far when it counts. I just wasn't that person. I think if I had started meditating when I was 18 years old, I would have been a phenomenal discus thrower in the big competitions. But I was super stressed, super neurotic. I was a bit weird back then. My mind was always racing. I can finally calm my mind now as a 33-year-old, but I wish I discovered it when I was younger, I think.
Wow. What, man, because you're legendary in the world of throwing, and man, there's great stories about you and stuff like that. I'm curious how you're going to answer this. Just as the person that you are, considering your history and legend as a athlete, what are you most proud of? Like if somebody asked you if you had to get up and tell something, like, what are you most proud of what you've achieved or done in your life?
In my life,
Yeah.
discus career, and my whole life, I mean, that's such a hard one. In my discus career, I've been asked this before. In my discus career specifically, I'll answer both questions. In my discus career, I was such a fan of Mac Throw Video, that website, forums and everything. He would pick thrower of the week, and I would always think like, okay, this is a diehard throws fan. He loves throwing. He knows throwing. So I respected his opinion. And when I won thrower of the week one week in college, I won thrower of the week, and he put my picture up, and I'm like, this is all I've ever wanted. It was like my proudest moment, more than the Olympics, more than anything else, because it was throwers giving me the approval of like I was thrower of the week. So I think that was very impressive, incredible for me. A very general answer for discus would be that like I did what I tried to do, not in terms of winning NCAAs or something like that. I just one day when I was younger, I just thought, okay, I'm going to try and get as good as I can at this thing called discus. This is it called a discus. I'm going to throw this as far as I can one day, and I'm going to dedicate as much energy as I could. And I just trained my butt off, and I learned as much as I could. And I wanted to be the best in the world. I wanted to break the world record. I wanted all of that. I didn't get there, but I got pretty good. Pretty good. I feel like it's validating. It built up my confidence in myself, knowing that if I try to get good at something, I can. I'm capable of that. It was my first real experience of just channeling my energy and it working out. In life, my proudest thing in life, it would probably just be being a good friend to the people around me, trying to be a good son, a good brother, that kind of thing. I mean, it's one thing that meditation brought me once my neuroticism died down and I could actually appreciate each moment in life. Throwing is great, and sports in general are great, and personal achievements are great, but you never get to. It's kind of isolating in a sense. You can be the best in the world at something, and pride in general kind of like isolates you from everything else. Like I won, I'm the best. It's about me. It may be me and my team, me and my coach, whatever, but very sort of self-centered. And I started to recognize the things I care about most in life. I'd like being good to people and having good connections with others and feeling love for other people. And the people, we're nothing without the people around us. And we all depend on everyone. And I'm starting to recognize that more and more as I grow older. And I love what discus gave me. I love the sport of track and field. It's incredible. I recommend it to everyone. But I've now just recognized ordinary life, and some of the most impressive people I've ever met. They're not famous. They're not rich. They're not anything else. The most amazing people I've ever met are people who they take care of their little corner of the world really well, and they take a lot of pride in that, in being loving, good people and caring and making the world a better place, even if they don't get credit for it. That's what's most important to me. So I'm trying to live my life like that, and every time I
Awesome.
achieve a little bit of it, I'm proud, you know.
Those kids that you get to encounter in Trinidad or whatever you called it are very blessed to have you because
Thank
you
you. I
are
appreciate it.
giving back and giving that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Two
Love
final
that.
questions. Do you have much interaction? I've spoken with Matt Denny because he's kind of a legend. Just had a great world. Did he win Diamond League or won a big meet just in this last
Yeah.
2 or 3 months? Have you had much interaction with him?
Yeah. We threw a lot, not recently, but we
Okay.
threw a lot. What was it? 2012,
Okay.
2011, 2012, I think I met him. And then I was going up to the Olympics. He was just a kid. He was throwing the 1.5 kilo discus, and he was good from a young age. He was
Yeah.
really good. He was throwing the 1 kilo a long way, 1.5. He was like either the best in Australia for his age or close. And year after year after year, and he was just getting better and better and better. And I remember at 2013, my best year. So I went back to the Australian Championships, went back home just to qualify for the world champs that year. I had to go back home to qualify. And I remember Matt he was throwing with the 2K with the men, and I think he was only 17 or something. And we were all, like me and my friend Matt Stoke and all these big guys, and I was having the season of my life. I'd thrown 66.23 that season earlier, and I ended up throwing a PB 66.32 at the Australian Championships. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, how you throwing? He's like, oh yeah. I'm like, do you want to put something on it? Do you want to like kind of like bet? Because he was like really confident. And he's like, well, I'm not going to compete against you. I'm like, no, all right, I'll give you 10 meters. I'll give you a 10-meter handicap.
Yeah.
And I was like, 10 meters? You don't have to give me that much. I'm like, no, I'll give you 10 meters because I was confident as well. And I think his personal best before that, he might have thrown like 53 meters or something. So I'm like, all right, I just need to throw 65, and I got him. And the loser, if I lost, I had to shave my beard off. And I'd grown my beard over like,
Yeah.
something. And or 2 years. And he said, all right, I've got you on that one. So I threw 66.32. I'm like, I'm sweet, I've got this. I think he throws 57.90 or something. So he gets within the 10 meters. I'm like, oh, this kid's amazing. This kid's incredible. And so then he just kept improving year after year after year, just kept getting better and better. And he's got the eye of the tiger. If you ever meet Matt, he's not like, he's just like, he's a nice guy, but he's not just like bubbly and friendly. He like shows up to a meet and he's like, I'm here to hit a bar. That's it. Like he's just like laser sharp focus, amazing, brimming with self-confidence.
Yeah.
I never had that really. I was more like I liked discus. I was a bit nerdy about discus. I liked the movement itself. He wants to win. He wants to win competitions and beat you. And he did. He just got better and better and better. And so I hung out with him every time I went back home. We trained together. He invited me to his old house in Allara. His
Okay.
parents' house. He's got a ring in the backyard and stuff. And so we had a throw there, and it was a good throw. And we were kind of friends, like kind of sort of rivalry, but more friends. It was never really like heated between us. And he overtook me in I'm gonna say like 2015-ish, 2016, he finally overtook me. And then it's just the gap just exploded. He's just huge. And now he's one of the best in the world. I think he's got one of the best techniques in the world, maybe of all time. A really beautiful technique.
Yeah. And going back to that two-turn philosophy, earlier in some of his stuff, he kind of did that step in. And,
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, my brain was thinking, okay, that's a little bit of Julian thought right there of taking that, offset second turn that you had and stepping in with that momentum, and getting that trigger and going and stuff like that. I was actually thinking he was going to pull it off and win the gold, being in the gold medal running in Paris, because he was peaking coming into that.
Yeah.
So I was expecting him to at least make podium. So
That was anyone's that
Yeah.
between, was it Roger? I don't know how to pronounce it. Roger Stoner and Mikolas and Matt. I mean, it was 3 centimeters or something between first and second, and then Matt was not that far behind. I think like at that level, it's anyone's, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if Matt wins a gold in the next few years. I mean, he's not giving up anytime soon. If you know Matt, he is hungry. He is hungry for it. So
Did you ever see him throw hammer as a youth? Because he
yeah,
credits his hammer training as a youth to really kind of catapult his discus career. And me, kind of in the States, we're seeing a lot more cross training. And you talked about shot and disc, but we saw a lot more weight with shot putters, hammer with shot putters, but now that weight thrower with that discus thrower combination because of that, rotational principles and stuff.
yeah. He was good at hammer. He was
Yeah.
quite good. He
Yeah.
had hammer and discus. Those were his two things.
Yeah.
He would occasionally mess around with shot put, but he wouldn't train it. And he was actually pretty good considering he didn't train it. But discus and hammer, he had it. He was almost balanced at both. It was hard to say which one he was better at. And I remember he was deciding whether he had to give one up at some point, and eventually he gave up the hammer. And I think it was the right call, because hammer, the world of hammer at the high level is. I'm not saying he couldn't have made it, but I think it would have been more difficult than discus for him. I think he was better suited for discus, and his technique in discus, yeah, it does look a bit influenced by hammer. I don't know the details because I don't know hammer that well. It looks a bit influenced by hammer, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it had a positive impact on him.
Gotcha. So when's the last time you've been to the States since you've been back home? I'm just curious.
Yeah, UCLA 2014.
Oh, wow.
Left
It's
UCLA,
been that
haven't been
long?
back. It's been that long. I mean, it's
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's because I came back to Australia, and then I had World Championships 2015, tried to make the Commonwealth Games 2016, and even after that, when I diagnosed my digestive illness, when I went to a doctor and everything, I was still trying to cling on to discus, not realizing that it was not going to work at the time. I was just every year I was throwing less and less and less, and I was throwing like 60, 59, 58, struggling to throw 57 in training. My body was weak, and I was just like I'm still going to make it. In my head, it was so hard to let go of. My whole identity was tied up in discus. And then I discovered this, through meditation, I discovered, call it the spirituality, but call it whatever you want. I discovered this other realm to like inner experience and self improvement. And I kind of let go of discus, and America was tied up in my discus identity. I want to visit again because there's parts of America which are just beautiful. I love that. But it's just I just never thought to go back, given that I always had something going on over here in Australia. I haven't traveled much at all recently, to be honest. In the last few years, I've been living basically just in Queensland, in my home state. I've been, I drive around a few hours from.
So will you go in 2032 when the Olympics come to Australia? Isn't it 2032? Because 2028 they're in Los Angeles, and then they're in yeah.
They're coming to
where
they're coming?
Yeah, 2032. It's in my hometown. It's in Brisbane, right here. So yeah, my friend just asked me the other day. It's funny because I have had very little to do with throwing for years. I coached a little bit when I came back home, but I haven't coached in years or anything. One of the kids I used to coach back home, he's now 22. He just called me up like 2 weeks ago and said, "Hey, can you coach me? Are you still coaching?" I'm like, "I don't coach, but I'll come out and see you." So I saw him the other day, had a session with him, and he's like, 2032 is coming up. You want to make a comeback? So I don't know, like my body's broken. I'm not as strong as I used to be. I don't know, but I might have a throw. I might go out to a field and just have a couple of throws, see how I go, and just see. But I doubt I'm going to be in shape to make 2032. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. It would be awesome if I did. I mean,
It would.
in the city, it would be so good. I think Matt, I'm going to guess Matt will probably, given his age, he'll probably make a run for 2032 and then maybe retire, because he's not going to retire before he competes. He lives I think 2 hours away from Brisbane. That's where he's from. So it's basically Brisbane area.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it'll be exciting.
Well, we're on the Olympic bug, so we might meet you down there. So I would love to see you throw.
Our first one was this past one in Paris, and it was awesome.
Yeah, well, come say hi, and if you're in Brisbane during the Olympics, I'll drive you around. I'll show you the area. You can probably stay with me.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, man. You are legendary. It is an honor to have you on. There's stories out there, man, and we're new to this ball game of the world of throwing. We've just been blessed to start this podcast, and it just kind of took off, and we're like, okay.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful what you guys are doing. I love it. I love the idea of we need more communication in the throws world, because it's a great group of people, and yeah, I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just telling stories, man, and it's been cool to us to kind of get exposure to someone like yourself and listen to some of the stories. And people ask us, like, what is your favorite episode? And like, well, we've listened to this story and this story, and it's been tremendous.
No, there's a growing throwers community here. I think track and field's getting pretty big, and we have a lot of people into discus and shot put and those kinds of things.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
We'd like to thank Julian for being on. What an amazing person. Kind of what a unique individual when it comes to the world of throwing. He had a lot of great quotes, and one thing I'll steal is prove people right. And I like that adage of, instead of trying to motivate you to prove people wrong, just approve people that are close to you, your support group, for your family, your loved ones, the people that believe in you, kind of approve those right. And he's right. That might be a greater motive, to kind of go that path. He's a game changer. The way he viewed throwing and the listen to his body and the feel, he was right with what he was saying, that sometimes we listen to the coach and we robotically do what the coach says, and that's totally against what you feel. And I think for him, listening to his body was his advantage, and how his brain worked and stuff. But also too, I reflect that he is someone who's found happiness in his life, and he is proud of what he accomplished in throwing, and then the discus, and breaking all those records and representing his country and being an Olympian. But he's at peace. As I think, sometimes as athletes, we get jaded where we're so competitive that we failed, that we don't reflect on the positive things that we had in that athletic, whether it was 10 years ago or 2 days ago. That sometimes that reflection can be bad, and it shouldn't be. And I think Julian's found peace with that and stuff. And I would actually like for him to make a comeback. But he is definitely legendary for go from Texas Tech to throwing that environment to NCAA champion, and then transferring to UCLA and winning a second one is pretty amazing.
I loved when we talked about a throws community, how that was probably the piece missing at Tech. He probably would have thrived there had that piece been there. But you need those people when you have a bad day or the coach is hard on you and things let you down. You have that group of people, that community that are always there to lift you up and encourage you.
Yeah, for sure.
That is super important, especially in an individualized sport. Like he said, when I'm coaching myself, you get alone. You need that. And then I think there's that happy medium between only coaching yourself and only listening to your coach.
Yeah.
There's got to be somewhere in the middle where you feel and connected. And that takes a while to build too, but
for sure.
Great stuff.
So we'd like to thank Julian for being on, and we just appreciate and stay tuned.
All right, we want to thank our sponsors for Season 8, Episode 128, Texas Track and Field Coach Association. Go to ttfca.org for all the latest. They've got the Winter Clinic that's coming up in January 2025. Look at that. Hall of Fame inductees are on there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So lots of people, and they've got a lot of amazing throwers who are talking at the clinic. Joe Brown being one of them, right?
Yes.
And Michelle Carter. So get to that clinic. You can also do a virtual option. So if you can't get to Waco at that time, if you're a coach, there is a virtual option. So make sure you look into that. 4throws.com, quality implements priced right. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. All sorts of training tools. They got shoes. They got anything you need. So check those guys out. NTX Timing, Carl Hornback and his crew manage your meet from start to finish. They have a relationship with Miles Split when they get registration, live results, all those things. Probably finishing up cross country right now, so to get them on your schedule for your spring track meets. Let them do the work while you get to coach. Big Frogs of Colleyville handles all of our printing and embroidery. So if you go to Colleyville at bigfrog.com and check them out.
Hello, Talking Throws Texas podcasters. I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm here today to introduce the FiberSport Discus. Yes, many of you thought I only made great vaulting poles. I have been bringing quality discuses to the throwers' hands for over 40 years. First as Cantabrian USA representative, then for the past 10 years as the Nelco Discus distributor. I introduced the yellow-plated discus for the plastic's best durability. If your FiberSport discus breaks, we replace it. Our studies have reached into the science of using a wind tunnel and adding microchips to the discus to find the spin, the gravity, the flight stability of the discus. We have found it's not about rim weight anymore. It's more about creating a balanced stability to allow the discus to fly and surf the wind. Our new FiberSport discus is made to be selected to fit your needs, no matter the weather, no matter the conditions. Check out our discus selection guide at fibersportdiscus.com and find a dealer in your area that sells our fine product. Thank you, Jason and Janelle, for allowing me to talk with your listeners on Talk and Throws Texas Style.
Lifting DFW mobile lifting station. Reach out to us if you're wanting to just train, whether it's for throwing or just train in general. Julian even talked about too, the importance of lifting and throwing. But if you're just looking to lift, we can help you out there. And then the Throwing Factory. We've got a shopping page, video assessment. Just reach out to us. We've got coaches in various places. We can find someone that meets your needs, whether it's online lessons or whatever it is. And then on our podcast, we have a YouTube channel too. So go look at that, like it, give us some tips, some thumbs up. We've been getting some good comments from people who have listened to some episodes. We would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on people we talk to, highlight some things that they say. We love that feedback. So thank you guys, and have a good one. So see you down the road.
See you down the road. Thank you.